Hey, welcome to another week of Conversations in Anarchy. I'm your host, Evan Kopelson, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Angel and David and Catherine, and the whole Anarchapulco team. We are thrilled to have you here and be with you here today. Thank you for joining us for another week. Today, our conversations are going to be about education and the education system, or as some like to call it here in the Anarchy community, the Indoctrination system. We're going to be again soliciting your comments and your feedback and sharing stories. We're going to be hearing from Angel and Catherine, our resident unschooling, homeschooling moms today. As for me, I am a proud anarchist. I've been living anarchy in my own ways the last 20 years or so in different ways. And I'm going to throw this out to Catherine right now, and we'll do some quick intros. And then we'll come back just like we do every week, and we'll go through kind of the rules of engagement and the topics of the day, and then we'll get into it. So introducing Catherine from the Homestead Guru. How's it going, Catherine?
Hey guys, it's Catherine from the Homestead Guru. I have got a little friend in the house. She's on her way home, so excuse the background noise. I'm an unschooling mom. I am this year's co-producer of Anarchapulco. I'm managing all things health and wellness, the Anarch Awaken stage. I'm really passionate about personal anarchy and personal sovereignty. So I'm really excited to have this conversation today because unschooling is something that is very near and dear to my heart. It's a philosophy that I live by, something I've explored, had ups and downs and all sorts of fantastic experiences. And I'm pretty embedded in the international unschooling community globally. And I'm just really excited to be here. And I'm really excited that my co-hosts here are all really passionate about unschooling too. So David, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey, great to see you all live and also on the recording. My name is David Rodriguez. Member of the Anarchapulco community for years, and I love talking about freedom. I'm a freedom lover. I'm a principal of a private school that focuses on accelerated graduations and apprenticeships. Also published The Underground History of American Education by John Taylor Gatto, which is a champion in his own right. And I think it's a day prison, and I'm so happy to have this conversation with all of you. And it's an intergenerational problem. And so we got the solutions in this conversation and going forward. I'm so grateful to be with you all. And my next co-host is Angel.
Hey, thanks, David. I am Angel. I am the co-producer teaming up with David to co-produce the 3-year family camp at Anarchapulco this year. I am the editor of the Anarchapulco blog and the editor of the Anarchist Guide to the Galaxy. I'm super excited to be here. I have 4 children. I've been unschooling for 8 years now, homeschooling and unschooling, and going through that entire process and learning as I have gone and figuring out what works for my family. And so I'm very excited to be here today and share with you my experiences and my insights, and to hear some of you guys as well. So I'm going to throw it back to you, Evan.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. That's so glad to be here. So let's go through this real quick. If you've joined us for the first time, welcome to Conversations in Anarchy. These conversations are a way for all of us to explore the concepts and philosophies of anarchy. So we've set forth a lot of these in our ebook, The Anarchist Guide to the Galaxy, that David and I wrote for the community, and Angel helped. I mean, this was a real team effort, this book. And so if you don't already have it, I'm sure everyone on the call already does, but we're like streaming out to multiple platforms now. We're on DLive, we're on Twitch. So I want to say hi to everyone that's coming, no matter what platform you're on. If you're watching us on the Anarchapulco YouTube channel or on the Anarchapulco Facebook page or in our private Facebook group, or if you're on the Evan Talks page or the Homestead Guru page or wherever else we're streaming to, our goal is to come and reach and meet you guys where you are and then pull you in so you can become part of the community with us. So we're not here teaching you guys anything. We're all kind of unpacking and exploring these concepts together. So if you don't have the Anarchist Guide to the Galaxy, go ahead and get that. It's free at anarchapulco.com. And before we jump into the meat of the day, I just want to make a couple of quick announcements. Last week, our hotels went live, and they're selling out fast, the hotel rooms. So like, if you don't already have your hotel room, you definitely want to come to the website and get a hotel room. Let me just show you really quick how to do that, okay? So right here, we're looking at the Anarchapulco homepage, anarchapulco.com. Okay, and if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see the menu kind of disappears and reappears. Okay, so what you do is you scroll a little bit so you get the menu, and then click this button that says hotel. Okay, when you click that button that says hotel on the link, it's going to take you, I already have it loaded. So here's the hotel page right here. And here it says book your room. So you can see the different benefits that are there. You can look at the beautiful Princess Hotel. You can learn all about the rooms. You can start looking at rooms. Amazing website we put together to book your room. So go ahead and do that. Another thing I want to encourage you to do is get tickets. So this is 2020, or if you click the Get Tickets button, it's going to bring you right here to our tickets page. It says 2020 tickets right there. You scroll down, and I just want to make sure everybody knows about the buddy tickets. So like, if you want to come with a buddy, with a friend, you don't have to pay full price for both tickets. Get a full price ticket for yourself and get a buddy ticket for your buddy and save $100. Okay, so that's all I want to say right now.
Oh, Evan,
yeah?
I'm going to jump in here and just remind you too, because you were just there, and because we're talking about unschooling and peaceful parenting, we just want to remind you and to share with people that children are invited to come for free. So if you have children under the age of 18, we want you to bring them and have them participate. And that's why we've created the Free Your Family Camp, where David and Angel and the whole team is putting a lot of effort into that to make sure that families are included and children are included. So this is a very good opportunity. We ask that you just add a ticket. There's zero cost to it, but if you add how many children you're bringing, then we know how many children to include when we're planning our events and activities.
Okay, so if you'll see everybody, that here's the adult ticket and the buddy ticket for Anarchapulco, and then the children's ticket is right here, and it's $0. Okay, now if you don't have an adult ticket, you're not going to be able to add a child's ticket. You'll get an error message in the cart that says you have to have at least one adult ticket. That's because we don't want unattended children coming, but we do want you to bring your families. So do come down and bring your families. And we can't wait to see you down there. Now I have my Zoom windows now blocking my screen share. Okay, that's awesome. So now we're back here, and I see a full house. I'm so happy to see people here on the call. So let's get right into the meat of the call, the ground rules of the call. You guys have been here, you're doing this, but we go through it quickly just for anybody who's like a first timer today. So we try to keep the meetings to an hour. We went 2 hours last week. We go as long as the conversation is vibrant and feels like we're really covering things and everybody's passionate. And if there's still a bunch of people on the call, we'll keep it going. We don't want it to drone on and on. So we'd rather kind of keep you guys coming back for more. So we'll try to end it and always keep you wanting a little bit more. But we're going to dive deep and we're going to go into these topics, and we really welcome your participation. If you do raise your hand to speak, just throw a note in the chat that you want to speak. And a little later in the call, when we open it up, we'll have you on and just, share whatever you feel like sharing, and just know that we're really happy to have you here. And it's just amazing that we'll be able to have these conversations together. Make sure to tell us where you're calling in from, because last week we realized we have a totally global audience, and it's amazing. So we want to know kind of where everybody's coming from, so we can get that thing going. Today we are talking about anarchy and education. Okay. And I'm just going to have very little to share on this. I have my own education experiences, but we have real experts and pioneers here in Angel and David and Catherine. So I'm going to be more asking the questions today and, not as sharing as much as I did last week. But here's what we're looking at this week. It's the education system, the way our kids are being indoctrinated by the system. We're going to talk about homeschooling and unschooling. What is that exactly? And peaceful parenting. What is that? We've got some other things here. We touched on some of those last week. So we may or may not get more into those kind of tools of indoctrination and the chemicals of indoctrination. But that's where we're going today. So what I want to do right now is throw it over to David, because I know that David is really passionate about this, the education system. A lot of your Facebook posts, David, are about the indoctrination system and the 12-hour day prison system. I've seen you call the education system. I certainly had years where I felt that. So I just want to throw it to you and have you share your thoughts on this whole topic of the week. And let's just roll it out from there. Just say whatever you want, pass it along, and I'll see you guys. I'll be here quiet.
Awesome. Thank you, Ev. Children are the most vulnerable people on planet Earth, and they spend 12 years in a building with complete strangers. Could you imagine taking your child and giving them to a babysitter that you never saw background check, you don't know who they are, not for one night, not for a week, for 12 years. And before I thrash the entire school system, let me tell you, my mother was a public school teacher for 20 years. I have family members that are principals and teachers now. I know there's loving people in the system, but the most important thing I share with parents is I consult with them, with homeschool leader, and helping them walk over the bridge from forced schooling to deschooling to school at home to homeschooling and to unschooling, is tell them that the school system was designed to do exactly what it's doing. The state does not want creative, powerful, courageous, imaginative people. They want drones, they want robots, and that's exactly why society is today. I want to give you a quote just so you know a little about the history, because if mom and dad, if you guys can get the history, and I'm sure I'm maybe preaching to the choir here, but some of the people who watch the video afterwards, the system is immoral, coercive, and deeply harmful. It's a day prison. There's no other organization on earth where you mandate attendance. Nothing. There's nothing. And we do it to the most vulnerable children on earth. This is a quote from Johann Fichte, 1808. Okay, just so you know, the system got imported from Prussia in 1852 to Massachusetts. Horace Mann was the dirty politician who brought it over. Okay, so he said this in 1806 in the Addresses of German Nation. Education should aim at destroying free will, so that after pupils are thus schooled, they will be incapable throughout the rest of their lives of thinking or acting otherwise than as their schoolmasters would have wished. When the technique has been perfected, every government that has been in charge of education for more than one generation will be able to control its subjects securely without the need of armies or policemen. This is what's happening. We have mental slavery. Bob Marley was correct. Only you can set ourselves free. And so that's the key thing to understand, is that we imprison ourselves and we can actually pull ourselves out. So the 5 steps I mentioned, it goes from forced schooling, which is default, mandatory attendance. Deschooling is when you pull your kids out and let them release the pressure, the stress, the superficial world that's in there, right? Because grades don't matter. GPAs don't matter in real life. And then school at home, so you take a curriculum and then you do it at the kitchen table. And then the next one is homeschooling, where a leader creates an atmosphere where personalized learning can occur, very respectful. And then unschooling is what I call 100% self-directed learning. And so why is forced schooling so damaging? And I'll hand it off to Angel or Catherine here, is that it creates learned helplessness. So they've done studies. You might have seen the goldfish studies, where if you have like a fish tank and you put a goldfish inside the fish tank and then you put a clear glass plate in the fish tank, the fish will swim until they hit the clear plate in the tank, And then they keep doing it. And then when you remove the glass plates, the fish could easily swim to the other side of the tank, but they will no longer do that because they have learned to become helpless. Same thing, they've done studies with dogs in cages with electricity. And once you electrify the dog won't go to the other side of the cage. This is what happens in school. We got to get permission to go to the bathroom. We got to get permission to study. I mean, could you imagine studying what you want to study? Like, instead of having to get permission or read boring books. I mean, this is what's so exciting about the homeschooling revolution that's happening, the evolution. And in some countries, it's still illegal. So this is what's so important. And the last part here is that the state has an agenda. Imagine if McDonald's was in charge of the school system. What type of things would you be learning? Well, you'd be learning how healthy all the preservative food is and how important it is to become an employee for McDonald's. So with our understanding that the state is intergenerational organized crime, they want people to pay their taxes and obey all their politicians and all these statutes, which are deeply immoral and violate natural human rights. So this is what we're saying. I'm saying, at least, remove your children, and we can talk about more of the solutions than that. But it's designed to be the way it is, parents. So if you can get that one nugget from this conversation, I think it'll be a valuable use of your time. And there's a lot of good resources, and this is one of them. That's what I want to share.
David, I love your passion, and I definitely agree with a lot of what you have to say. I think I have 4 children, and I'm always trying to figure out how I want them to go forward in the world. And what's important to me as a parent is that they feel confident, they feel prepared, but they also feel like they are doing what's going to make them happy. And I want them, and when you put your kids in school, they tend to try to get them on these tracks and tell them what's important about life and how they should be moving forward to some specific goal. And it's always a goal that, has being chosen for them within the realm of what society is right now. And for me as a parent, that was really that was really something that I couldn't allow, because I look around at society and I see that people are not generally happy. That even when they attain all of the things that they're supposed to attain, when they have the money and when they have the success, and it doesn't always equate to happiness, and people feel a bit lost. And I think a big part of that is just always being in a place where people are telling you who you should be. And beyond that, I think it does all these other things. Outside of that, there's just the social element. There's always being forced into these communities of people who may not be the communities that you want. Like, you're right, like compulsory school, it means that they can't make a choice. They can't make a choice to be there. They can't be present. They can't be receptive. They are constantly put in these stressful situations with no way out. And so as parents and as a homeschooling parent, it really was important for me to start to think about how I can give my kids some choice. I could give my kids a childhood. I mean, we're on this planet. I don't know. All I know is that we have this one life. I know that. I don't know about anything else. And they have this one childhood. And so for me, it was really important to know that they're going to have a childhood, that they're going to live in freedom for some portion of their lives. And that living in freedom as a child might actually create the sorts of adults who won't stand for not living in freedom in adulthood. So that's one of the things that's really important to me, and just to pull them out of that indoctrination system. And so unschooling parents, peaceful parenting, a lot of it is about pulling them out of all of the systems, right? There is the system of education, but there's also all of the media that they're consuming, and that is imparting values that we might not appreciate. And so our job as parents is to really figure out how we can take ownership of being parents and actually do this thing that people have been doing for hundreds of thousands of years, right? And actually raise our kids and actually be a part of who they are and what they think. And also to be there to protect that freedom a little bit. Kat, I know you have 2 little ones. I'm interested and what you think about it and how you even came to this position of unschooling.
Yeah, for me, I was in the public education system and I was a very bright student, and it was difficult for me to find myself challenged enough. I graduated high school a second semester sophomore in college. And I was, in all the AP classes, and I really, really dominated, so to speak, but I felt held back. I was annoyed in all of my classes. I felt like my teachers were babysitting people. I didn't feel like I needed to be there. And I was the kind of student that I kind of showed up when I wanted to my senior year, and my teachers just sort of accommodated me. And if there had been another way for me to exist academically as a child, it might have been a better fit for me. I wasn't happy in public school. I had a lot of emotional things going on because of my environment, and I wanted so badly to be anywhere but there. Now, that's not to say, I don't think the system failed me. I don't think that it was traumatic necessarily. I just think I wasn't able to reach my full potential. And I'm just one type of example. There's people who are failing school that aren't able to reach their full potential. And I think this is because we have this systematized machine where children are segregated by age instead of grouping together based on interest, as you do when you're an adult. I know for me, as soon as I was out of the school system, my friendships began to stretch across a variety of age groups, and I tended to really relate well with women who were about 10 years my senior. And those were the type of girlfriends that I had, and they, in school, I didn't have a lot of girlfriends. It was a very new thing for me in my 20s to be hanging out with girls. I was always one of the guys. I was very athletic and just had I didn't group well with girls in school. And it wasn't until I got out of that system that socially I began to flourish, and I began to develop really amazing relationships. And I do still have some soccer friends from high school that I'm really close with, but it's two, and now that I'm an adult and my friendships span such a diverse range of ages, I wanted that for my children too. And so for me, that was a priority, was making sure my children had access to kids their age, kids older than them, kids younger than them. And that is the beauty of unschooling, in my opinion, is that you're not sent through this cookie cutter machine where, the program is rolling and you may be over here or down here, wherever, with your interests and your passions and your desire to actually be there. And the machine just keeps rolling in an automated fashion. It's a one-size-fits-all program. And that's public school. Of course, there's, private school options and homeschool options and unschooling. But because the society that we were born into kind of maintains that cookie cutter method into adulthood in general, where it's like, okay, I went through the public school system. Now I'm going to go to college for 4 years. I'm going to get a good degree. I'm going to go work in an office, probably maybe in a cubicle. I'm going to, buy the house in the suburbs. And there is a very cookie cutter kind of pathway that is designated for us. And once you're on that path and you're an adult and you're looking at your kids and you're like, well, yeah, homeschooling sounds interesting. Private school sounds interesting, but I'm on this path. I'm in this cookie cutter. The machine is rolling. Things are happening. I don't even know how to segue my way out. And so I think culturally, in some ways, we get stuck within these institutions and within these systems that have been imposed on us before we were born. I was born into this system. I'm sure a lot of the people here listening, and some of our elders are on the call, and I hope later that they can share how they've watched the system evolve. But I do feel like we are swinging more toward, I like what you said, Angel, giving our kids a childhood. I feel like with our generation, the mothers that are in their 30-somethings, there is a huge movement, at least in Texas, of families who are giving their children a childhood where it looks different for all of them. It's not the same thing. Some kids might be in a homeschooling co-op. Some kids, there's a free forest school in Central Texas. There's Earth Native Wilderness Center. There's Reggio Emilio schools. There's Waldorf. There's homeschooling. There's all of these different methods. And what I see happening is that there is a rise in the desire of parents to provide a childhood for their children. And I think that this is really interesting. I think it's really beautiful. It's something I've been experimenting with. My children are 8 and 6 years old. I have done it in ways so far that have worked for me and ways that have not. Honestly, the easiest way for me to homeschool is when I'm living in community. At the beginning of this call, I mentioned we have a little friend in the house. I've got my converted school bus, the Bitcoin.com bus, parked at a friend's house here in the Sam Houston National Forest. And because of that, we have instant access to community, and being on location has made it really easy for me.
Let me jump in here, Catherine, real quick, because there's some chatter on the other channels, and it's really right on point with what you're talking about. And people are asking, like, how hard it is to balance homeschooling and unschooling with actual work. And so I know that you and Angel obviously have both, all of us are basically entrepreneurial. And so it's really hard to have that regular cubicle job or whatever. So it's like, for parents that are really resonating with this message and want to explore this homeschooling thing, but they're getting their money from a regular job still. Like, is there a way for them? How can that work?
Can I just,
well, I think,
I
think you can just step your way into it. You know, if your end goal is to homeschool, start by pulling your kids out of public school and put them in a Sudbury school, which is a student-led education model. Put them in a Reggio Emilio school. Put them in a program that is in alignment with your values. It doesn't have to be instantaneous. Everyone comes home, mom's home, kids are home. What are we going to do? How are we going to pay the bills? You can start phasing your way into these things. And there are programs that have sliding scale fees. So if you are going from, I don't pay anything and the school bus picks my kids up at school, but I want to start transitioning in this way, you can find a place that has, you know, a spectrum of fees, and you can start at the lower end. And as you work your way into it, you know, you're going to want to contribute to these schools because they're amazing and the kids really thrive there. What were you going to say, Angel?
Well, my experience was that I didn't have a plan. The day I decided to take my kids out of school, I was working full time. I wasn't sure how I was going to do it, but I was really fed up with the entire ethos at their school. And I think there's something to be said. We all, sometimes we think too much and we want to plan too much. And we think that everything has to be perfect. You have to have a perfect plan, and you really don't have to have a perfect plan. You can figure it out as you go along. And sometimes the necessity that is required when you take, you know, bold action, like pulling your kids out of school, that's the thing that helps you to shape your life in the way that you want it to be shaped, rather than, you know, always putting it off in the future. So when I took them out of school, my kids were 6 and 10. And my 10-year-old actually did not get taken out of school. She still wanted to go to school, but my 6-year-olds, I have twins. At the time I had, they were the youngest. And I took them out of school. I was working full time. I went and talked to my boss and I said, listen, I need more time at home. I can do some of this work at home, you know, and I had been a good employee for a number of years. I'd been with them for many years before, and they gave me a better schedule. And at the time, my husband was working, but sort of underemployed. And so he had some time at home, but we just made it work. We didn't have a plan because it was so important for us to just get it started. And we just realized that these people did not, it's not necessarily that they don't have your kids' best interests at heart, but they definitely didn't share our values. They definitely, I remember they called us into the school because they the kids were having some problems, and we had a very serious meeting, and it was the principal and the teacher, and this was in first grade, the principal and the teacher and a social work, not a social work counselor, and it was all very serious. And they said to me, as I'm looking at my 6-year-old, we've got to get your kids on the right track, because if they don't get on the right track now, they're not going to be able to get jobs. And I was like, my kids are 6, okay? And I just realized that the entire ethos here, I mean, there were other things too, when I really tried to get into the nitty gritty of like, well, what do you think the problem is? It was so clear to me that this woman who had, 28 students in her class didn't even know who my kids were. She didn't know their personalities. She didn't know where they were struggling and why. And I knew that I could be home, that at home, even in the short periods I could do a better job. And besides, it was like sending my kids to school. They would come home and then I would have to reteach them an entire lesson. And it just felt like, why am I sending my kids away to these people when I'm still having to teach them, and I'm having to make dinner, I'm having to work full time. So where there is a will, there is a way, and everyone's situation is a little bit different. But I think that you really have to weigh out, what do you want your child's childhood to be like? And this is the only one that you're going to give your child. And so it's going to take some creative thinking, and there are solutions, like Kat said, but I don't want the perfect to be the enemy of the good. You can just move forward and then build around that. I mean, I'm even presently now, I'm always building around it. I'm working, and spending a lot of time trying to make something of my life and provide for my family, but also making sure that I'm there and that I'm present and that I am providing for them, like this experience on earth.
If you don't live in a community, if you live in a regular city, I live in Los Angeles, if like other people live anywhere, and you're trying to tiptoe into this and you've got kids, I don't have kids yet, but let's say you have kids and you want to get into this. My biggest question was always, and part of it's been answered by hearing that there are these alternative model schools that are available. I'm not sure how widely available and how many there are in every location. And I'm wondering if people are like, here's the big question. Where do my kids meet other kids if they're going to school at home? How do they socialize, and where do you get them into how do they learn those life lessons of being with other kids, maybe playing sports or doing any of those other types of things? Like, you kind of have to organize all of that separately, right? Or are there solutions that I don't even know about? Because again, I'm asking I'm asking because of
with me. They meet everybody. They meet people of all ages. When I was running a bookstore, they were there with us. They were meeting the people who were customers at the bookstore. They were witnessing conversations. They were part of the events. Meetup.com, Facebook, there's unschooling groups. There's all sorts of ways that you can get together and gather with like-minded families. I have found that by being a decentralized education person, by traveling, I have exposed my children to way more people than they would ever be exposed to in school. And we're free to travel. We're free to hang out with people of all ages. And we have little hubs. Like for me personally, I'm sorry about my dog barking. And it's raining. You can probably hear it in the school bus. But I have little hubs, right? I've got a Kansas City hub where we have families that we hang out with. I have an Austin hub with families we hang out with. I have a North Houston hub with families we hang out with. I have an Acapulco hub with families we hang out with. And these are people that we see every single year. These are people that we have history with, that we have relationships with, and kids are able to communicate via technology as well. So this idea that socialization doesn't happen in schools, I disagree with outside of school, because kids are segregated by age in school, and they're with the same 30 kids every single day in the same classroom until the year's over. And then they get put in another classroom with another group of people. And so for me, in my experience, my kids are exposed to such a diverse group of people, and they have these long-term relationships where they're seeing the same people over and over and over and over, and we're not changing that group of 30 every time a new school year starts.
Yeah, I personally think public schooling, especially compulsory schooling, is pretty antisocial. I mean, these kids are stressed out. They're trying to get good grades. They have their family lives, and they're bringing whatever they've got going at home. They're bringing it to the school and taking it out on other kids. There's not a lot of support for them at school. And I have found that it's really a very antisocial place where it's cliquey, where people are forced together, forced to see people who might not necessarily be kind or nice to them every single day, forced into close proximity. And that doesn't make them more social. That doesn't seem to be, and my kids have a lot of friends. Well, my daughter has fewer friends. She's very selective, but my son has a lot of friends, and they all go to the schools. And there is a difference. There's a difference in the way they communicate. And I've seen like homeschooling, unschooling kids and the way they communicate, the things they talk about, the ways they talk about their interests versus talking about people. That's one of the insights that my daughter shared with me. She said, when I'm hanging out with the kids from the public schools, a lot of what they talk about is just other people and they're not talking about what they're doing, sharing who they are. And so I really think it's a place that breeds antisocial children. And even my oldest daughter, she actually was on a track and stayed in school until her junior year of high school. And she was really angsty and kind of just like not very likable. And I thought it was just that teenage period that like, oh, she's a teenage girl. She's just going to suck for a while. But when she decided to homeschool, because, she had always been a very good student, and I think she started getting interested in music and other things, and she decided, okay, I'm going to homeschool, because I had said to her, if you're not going to do school well, then you should definitely just homeschool. And so when she did, what we all noticed in our home was that within like 3 weeks, she was in the kitchen talking to us and laughing with us, which was not a thing that she did. She was kind, she was happy, she was smiling, and it dawned on me that like, wow, that pressure of being in school, that social pressure, the grades and everything, who knows what it was specifically, but there was always some sort of kid drama happening. All of that was creating this person who just couldn't release. And she even chose to go to school. So I think that says something, because she could have been homeschooled at any point, and she chose to go because she was on a track and she thought she had to do it a certain way. But I mean, there was such a change. So I challenge anyone who says, oh, your kids aren't going to get socialized, or your kids are not going to get socialized. You know what I mean?
What about the intermixing of, when I'm talking about socialization, I'm also talking about long-term, I was put with a bunch of people. Some of them are still my friends today. I have a lot of friends that I met in school. I met a lot of assholes too, but I met a lot of really good people too. And it is kind of luck of the draw, and you meet people wherever we go. But right now there seems to be this whole move towards, demonizing homeschoolers. And there's, with the forced vaccine laws and stuff like that are coming down in different states. And I'm wondering, I've seen things that are like the ostracization of, again, the anarchist communities. Like if the public school people are looking down at the homeschool people because they're the unvaccinated or they're the, whatever. Have you guys experienced any of that? Is that just all on Facebook?
I think that's more of an internet thing. Honestly, like when we're out and about, my daughter's in dance class, we're out going to music events or hiking, and we run into other unschoolers everywhere. I think that, or homeschoolers as well. I mean, I think that just walking down my street, I met a homeschooling family that lives in a tiny house, just a 20-minute walk down the road. So I think that we have a movement that has grown really large, and there's a lot of keyboard activists who like to get on there and be really negative. But I have found in my day-to-day life that people are really supportive of homeschooling, and they ask us questions and they come up because, you don't always see a 6 and 8-year-old walking around in the middle of the day. but people are curious and they introduce themselves and are very social. I haven't received any sort of negative pushback. David, I know that you are online a lot and really rallying the troops, and I'm just curious if you're talking to people who are having different experiences. You're talking to a lot of families.
Yes. So there is a demonization of homeschoolers. Why? Because the schools get money, the districts get money from the state based on average daily attendance. So when Mrs. Jones is looking at the roster and 5 kids are gone because they went homeschooling, the district loses money. And just so you guys know, the school business is a $600 billion a year business. This is major money. Give you some contrast. The National Football League, the number one sport in America, generates $13 billion. So we're comparing $600 billion with 13, and you hear nothing about the school system. You have the NFL, pontificators and guys speaking about this thing in the Super Bowl. Meanwhile, there's a lot of money being made. So anytime you remove money, the textbook companies, the architects, the food business, the trash business, the uniform business, the paper business, this is major money. And if you go around, drive around the neighborhood, the schools are the largest buildings. So the sad thing is that they are being demonized. However, like you, Captain, when I'm out there talking, they're like, oh, you guys are homeschooling? I wish I could homeschool too. I'm like, here's how you do it. And it took me a couple of years because I was running an expo called Education Options Expo as I was working out the best ways to do it. So you mentioned Sudbury is a very powerful model. There's also something called Agile Learning Centers. Really love those guys. I think they got the evolution. There's something called Act On Academy. For parents or parents to be out there, there's a documentary called Summerhill 2008. This is about the school from United Kingdom. This school's been around for 100 years, and they show how the 8-year-olds intermingle with the 12-year-olds and how the different stories. When you bring a child from a compulsory environment and you put them in this school, have to be a boarding school, the kindergarten through 12th grade school, they say, hey, here's the classes that we offer, optional classes. And the kid's like, no, I don't want to take anything. And they're like, okay, well, there's a bike ramp in the front. There's musical instruments in the barn. We got 10 acres. Go be a kid. And the guy's like, are you serious? And he's running around. He gets outside. He's like, yeah, I'm free. Because education, here's the thing when I consult with parents, what is an education, right? We know what a book is. We know what a piece of paper is. We know what a computer is. What is an education? What are you after for your child? And in my research and consultations, it's a happy child, a healthy child, maybe independent, productive, eventually as an adult. So like we just mentioned, I told you my mother was a school teacher. These teachers got 5 classes of 30 students. They don't even know your child's name without the seating chart. And they're like, yeah, who's this? They don't know your name. So what's so good about homeschooling is that you can customize it. And the great John Gatto said, an education should be as unique as your fingerprints. So there's 7 billion people or so on earth. That means, in my opinion, there's 7 billion types of educations. And so I know it's scary. It's one of my clients said it was the scariest decision I ever made to pull my child out of the school system. Well, what you're seeing here with Angel and Catherine is the unschooling. This is the apex of education because it's 100% self-directed learning. They trust their kids. They love their kids. They got some supportive community members. However, if mom or dad are working and now whether they did good or bad in school, they're coming home and they think they got to be Mrs. Jones. My philosophy is that the world is the classroom. And anything and anybody you can learn from can be a teacher. So instead of thinking of yourself as a teacher, think of yourself as a guide, as a coach, as an encourager, as a facilitator. Then you just guide them to where it's going on. And then one of the secrets is when your child gets excited, like I love age like 4 to 8 is beautiful. They got the full self-expression. They're not self-conscious. When they're excited about frogs, facilitate frog stuff for them. And when it changes to coding, facilitate coding stuff. And if they're bored, let them sit and kind of marinate and learn about themselves because like them, us, whether we're adults, we're trying to figure out what's going on Earth, planet Earth, what to be a human being, the mysteries of life, what is happening. So they're asking questions and things like this. And so I know it's scary, but if you can get the confidence that homeschooling was the norm for thousands of years. It's the compulsory state school system, which is the rarity, the last 150 years, 200 years. And it's been the tool of status control, as I gave you the quote about policing ourselves. So if you could have the philosophy like that you don't got to be the teacher, and that the socialization aspects, like you mentioned, there's different groups. And the last part is that you heard the quote, I can't hear what you say because what you do speaks louder. So if you're an introvert hermit and you expect your child to be out there socializing with people, that's kind of difficult. However, when you're out the grocery store, when you're talking with friends or family, barbecues, religious stuff, whatever you're doing, your child's watching you. And they see, oh, mom spilt the juice and she was patient. Or she spilt the juice and now she's throwing profanities and just doing whatever she wants. Hey, they're trying to understand, and you're the model, and don't be scared about that. In my opinion, love is the lesson and life is the classroom. And so, of course, happy, healthy, independent. But the thing you mentioned, Angel, was so on point about the 6-year-old worried about a job. Hey, the dream, it used to be the American dream, but the human dream is freedom to chart your own course. We don't want to be part of an employee for a corporation for our whole life. What do you love to do? What is exciting for you? So if you, for example, let's say you won the lottery, you had all the money in the world, what would you do with your time? What would you do with your life? So whether you have kids or pets or family, whatever it is, something that makes you feel alive. So rather than being, let's say, a poet, the words make you feel alive, or a singer, the vibrations of your voice make you feel alive. There's so many aspects of our human development that the children are so in touch with that, which is so great about this model, is that it opens them up to try different examples, to chart their path. And also, maybe we're touching this, I'm curious, but see, you guys are already doing unschooling. You guys are already like winning. It's like the people who are just in the school, they say, well, got to be a teacher. And what about the curriculum? Hey, curriculum, the root of curriculum, and I'll get you back, Kat. Curriculum means a course or a path. So we're all unique, right? Fingerprints, we're all unique among 7 billion people. So rather than thinking it's a memorization thing, hey, this device is the most revolutionary device on planet Earth. Memorization has value, but does it have supreme value? Communicating in classroom, they call that cheating. But as soon as you graduate, you get the piece of paper, you're now finished with high school. Now it's called collaboration. So a lot of cool things to maybe branch off here, but I'll give it back to Kat.
Thanks, David. I just wanted to respond about the curriculum really quick, because not all curriculums are created equal, right? You have the standardized testing curriculum that a lot of schools are utilizing. That started really when our generation was in school, right? They started teaching to the test. I remember this in high school where they're like, this is going to be on the test. You got to be ready for that. Now, for me, I'm in a really interesting situation right now. I'm going through a divorce. The judge mandated that my children go to a private school 3 days a week. I homeschool 2 days a week. This is because their dad wants them in school. So thankfully, the state is trying to honor how both parents want to parent. So they're letting me homeschool on my days, and he's sending them to school on his days. And thankfully, he picked a school that has a really loose and diverse curriculum model. And there are styles of learning that have curriculums that aren't rigid and it can be catered to each child. So for example, the school that they're at uses Reggio Emilio. And this is in a lot of ways similar to Waldorf at Home, which is a curriculum that I was using. Waldorf at Home really strongly encourages you to not teach reading or writing until age 7 in ways other than environmentally, right? So there's no lessons of any sort where you are trying to teach the children to read, to write, or to do math. Instead, it's lifestyle, it's rhythms, it's, integrating your children into the family, into the home, teaching them how to be an active participant in the family. So I did Waldorf at Home. My daughter did the first grade curriculum at age 7. And then now for second grade, she's 8. She is in this private school 3 days a week. She's doing math at a 3rd grade level, okay? And she is doing some writing of some words at a 3rd grade level. And the teachers at our parent-teacher conference this past week were like, did you teach her this thorn, how to spell thorn, like this O-R-N? This isn't something that we're doing. But here's the deal. I did not. In fact, the Waldorf at Home 1st grade curriculum was so laid back and so loose that, I mean, I probably put in, 20 days of writing and 20 days of math that were not environmental and circumstantial and things that we were just running into. And what I was explaining to the teachers, I think she can do multiplication in her head because we went to Mexico and we were there for 6 months and she was doing currency conversions. We'd go to the grocery store, right? She would do her chores, earn pesos. She had to, figure out, okay, how much am I earning in pesos? So I'm doing chores. Then she'd go to the grocery store. Okay, well, I want to buy this toy. Do I have enough money? She's doing the currency conversion in her head. And here's the deal. I'm pulling out my phone and I'm typing in the peso to USD conversion, and she is already saying it out loud. Okay. And this is a 6 and 7 year old, her birthday was while we were living in Mexico. She's doing these conversions in her head that I can't do faster than I can pull out the calculator and do it. So this is life learning. This is life learning. And it's not child-led, it's life-led. It's the experiences that you are having. The reason my daughter is going into 2nd grade with probably 40 lessons ever under her belt ever, and honestly, that was because I felt pressure in my family situation to bring a curriculum into the home. So we did the 1st grade Waldorf, but I also did the Waldorf at home for age 3 to 7, and that was just lifestyle. There was nothing else. It was all, they started learning to read through Minecraft. And now we're reading the Harry Potter series. We're on book 4. And my daughter she'll stop me and she'll read entire sentences with these ginormous words. She's just watching me read. So they are sponges. They are absorbing information. They can learn languages really easily at this time. So if you are simply exposing them to learning opportunities, to the world, to cultures, to people, to experiences, to music, to science museums, to hiking trails, whatever it may be, to movies, to video games. These are opportunities for them to learn. There's a Minecraft homeschool curriculum, okay? So curriculum is not necessarily bad. It's when it's rigid and it doesn't give the children the freedom to express themselves. So at this 3 days a week school, they're not putting pressure on my son who is testing in at a strong kindergarten level at the beginning of 1st grade. That's great. I never did a single lesson with him whatsoever because the Waldorf at home curriculum never got us there. So anyway, I'm just finding through my experience that having a very loose curriculum or no curriculum at all and giving rich life experiences is actually putting them in a position where they're more advanced than the kids who have been learning these things, since pre-K. And some kids, they don't start reading until 8 or 9 on their own. But the thing is, as long as they have access to words and they have access to language and they have access to books and technology and pens and papers, they're going to learn to read. And so this idea that they have to go to school to learn how to read, in my opinion, is such a brainwashed sort of mindset that has been beat into us through the public education system, that we need school to learn. And now that my daughter is able to read like the text messages on my phone, and I'm realizing like, okay, the world is her oyster. She can do anything now because she has this foundation. So here's this 8-year-old and she has this foundation and she can do anything. She can go anywhere with it.
So how does it work with, you send your kid to school twice a week or 3 times, however many days, maybe it switches every other week, but how do they keep track? And is there testing? Like public school is all about testing and that. So how do they know? Like, because, Einstein, it says he didn't speak till he was like 5 years old and they thought he was autistic. So like, every kid matures at their own rate. That's what I'm taking away from what you just shared. But how do the public school system, even with their open set, I'd love to learn more about that. How do they take a kid in twice a week, kind of compare him against all the other kids that they're trying to grade and score and move to the next grade? And how do they evaluate what you're doing in your homeschooling if they're teaching them to read a year or 2 before you and you're like, and it makes perfect sense what you said, but it seems like you or one might come into conflict with a system when there might be different agendas or different curriculums at that public school versus your school? And then again, I hate to keep mentioning the vaccine thing, but what about the things where the kids can't go to public school if they don't get their shots, and then you're sharing them? What if you didn't want them to get their shots and your husband did want them to get their shots?
Yeah, in Texas, there's vaccine exemptions, and my kids are not at a public school. He wanted them in this school. He's paying for this school. It's a private school, and it's a Reggio Emilio school. And so the teachers are familiar with Waldorf. They understand how I was working with them up to this point. And we're working together. We have a Google Doc where I say, hey, these are the activities we did. And they're like, hey, here's what we're doing. So I'm actively communicating, wow. But I have a very unique thing going on. But there are programs like this. There are homeschool. There's Extraordinary Education in Magnolia, Texas, and that is a homeschool co-op where you can enroll your kids in reading, writing, and math 2 days a week for 2 hours, and then homeschool the rest of the week. So there are hybrid programs out there, and thankfully, even though the state is involved in my life, I'm able to do it this way.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that, because I want to go out to the audience here, because I know Ray, Terrace, and Emily want to say something. And Ray, I want to go to you because, we're talking about elementary school years right now, but I had my own little experience studying in London for a semester when I was in college and experiencing the university system in London, where I went to study Romantics and Victorians, and the teacher took me to the library and showed me all the books. And it's like, okay, here's all the Romantics, here's all the Victorians. Come back to me, in a couple of days and tell me what you're going to be reading and writing about. And I'm like, what? I'm like, aren't you going to tell me what I have to read and what book reports I have to write? And they're like, no, you're here to study. Here's all the stuff, check it out, see what you like best, and write about what you like. And I was blown away. Now, I don't think they do that in elementary school, because remember the Pink Floyd song, "We don't need no education. All we are is just another brick in the wall." So I really want to hear from Ray Terrace today, and anything you want to share, Ray, but I'm interested in your perspective on the British school system, if you have anything to share on that or anything else on that. Are you here with us? Let's see. Has Ray been unmuted? Yeah, Ray, you're unmuted. If you're on the call, you can say hi.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. How you doing,
good.
Ray?
Pretty good. Yeah, I went to school in England in the 50s. That tells you how old I am. But believe me, the schools I've seen in North America are nothing compared to what the British schools were back in the day. I had nightmares even into my 40s and 50s of having to go to school. Fortunately for me, ADHD hadn't been invented at that time, so I didn't get drugged, which was a good thing. But we all had to wear our little uniforms and wear them properly, had to have the cap on the right way and all this kind of stuff. In my second to last year, I hated it so much that I was absent 52 times in the second to last year. And the school made the ultimate threat, and they could do this in England, that they would keep me back for another year. In my final year, I aced every course. I had 80s, 90s, 100s, every course. And I won a prize for that. I couldn't believe it. It was so crazy. But no, the schooling system altogether is I don't know if you've seen Sir Ken Robinson's thing on TED Talks about schooling. If you get a chance to watch it, it's beautiful.
Cool. I'll check that out for sure.
It is slavery to kids. That's all it is. That's all it's ever has been. I taught my nephew how to read. He hated reading. I mean, he was 12 years old and he couldn't read. And he hated it. And I talked to him. I said, well, why? He said, because they won't let me read the stuff I'm interested in. And so I said, what are you interested in? He said, astronomy. So I got him some astronomy books. A year later, he read the whole of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and all the rest of those. He just plows right through them now. So it was great. Yep, that's about all I have to say.
That's great. I mean, it really goes to what, what Catherine was saying, that you can expose them to what they're interested in and they're going to naturally want to learn. I still remember learning how to write the letters when I was in first grade. And I'm glad I was taught how to do it. Do you ever sit down with your kids and teach them how to write, or like, how do they actually learn how to do it? It's part of the curriculum, but you just don't force it on them at 6. You wait until they're 7 or 8.
Yeah, and my kids started writing with their older friends before I ever started writing with them. That's the thing about being with multiple ages. These kids have games. Like, my kids and their friends here have had, since we got back from Mexico, so all of April through now, they have been playing a game master game where this game master leaves notes on the property and they, do an investigation to find out what's going on. And so they're writing and they're playing together, and I have nothing to do with it. And this has been like a 7-month-long game that they're playing, okay? And it just keeps going and going and going. So, they teach each other. They really do. And I do work with them. My daughter asks me, how do you spell this? How do I write this letter? In the car driving here, my son was just, how many times does 6 fit into 45? And he's asking me these questions, and we're just talking through them. So,
wow,
yeah.
That's really cool. And then do you have I remember last week or the week before, you had mentioned that one of your kids, maybe it was Angel or you, I forget, but one of your kids wanted to do all the testing and make sure they could qualify to go to college, and the other one didn't care as much, or maybe we'll do it later. Is there, in these curriculums, is there annual testing, or is there anything standardized about this kind of homeschooling programs, or how does that work?
Depends on the curriculum. It just depends on the curriculum and what state you're in. Some states have mandatory homeschooling rules. Texas is like, I think we're required to, if we get asked, we have to show that they're learning about Texas history, reading, writing, and math. And as long as we can show that they're exposed to that in some way, there's no formal curriculum requirements here in Texas. So I'm, grateful to be here in that regard. But some states do require homeschoolers to submit certain testing.
Right. Okay, cool. I want to go to other audience. Is there anyone else wants to come on? I think we got Emily, we got Moose. Anyone want to share right now, or has any questions for Angel or for Catherine or David about how the homeschooling or unschooling works? Hi, Emily. Emily, you're unmuted.
I'm not sure if she's there, but while we wait for her, I do want to say something, because I think when we advocate for unschooling and homeschooling, there's a lot of, it's awesome, your kids are just going to learn everything, right? We do that. But the thing is, it's difficult. It's difficult no matter what. It's difficult whether you make this decision to keep your kids in school. It's difficult whether you decide to school them or homeschooling, and you're going to second guess yourself at every step of the way, because we live in a culture where we're testing against everything else. We're looking, and we're always feeling like we have to meet some sort of benchmark in order to justify giving our kids a childhood. And so sometimes it's going to be difficult. I mean, I saw Emily was mentioning that, she doesn't like her kids are bored and she doesn't know what to do with them. And there are real challenges to deciding to take your kids out of school. But I think the challenges are a lot more about how we feel internally about not meeting the benchmarks that society sets for us. And they're less about our kids being okay. We have a high time preference, and we want to see our kids be okay right now. We want to see them learn right now. We want to know that we've made the right decision right now, and that's not what's going to happen. And it's not going to happen when you go to school. You send your kids to school, and it's kind of the default. right? Like, it's like, well, if an unschooling kid turns out to be a hobo, like, oh, you look what you did to your kid. But if you send your kids to school, like, it's okay if they become, like, you did everything you could have done and they just turned out to be a hobo. And so it really takes a lot of courage to stand up to a society that judges you in that way and say, listen, whatever your benchmarks are, I am living in this way because my life isn't about you, and what my kids are doing and what they're learning isn't about you. That's for us to decide, and they can decide, right? They are capable at every step of the way of taking in the information that they want to take in. And so I really want to make sure that people understand that it's really not going to be easy, and you are going to have those moments where you question everything that you do. But that is just what parenting is.
Yeah, that sounds, because going against the grain is really tough. It's like James just chatted that, and it's so true. It's hard to have a constitution, a personal constitution that will stand up to authority, that'll stand up against, not necessarily even against, but stand up when the whole society around you is peer pressuring towards one direction. And even if they're not talking down to you, they're still kind of modeling, and they're using the words like in themselves, like, oh, even I know people is like, oh, I would love to do that, but I'm just so afraid of, fill in the blank. And so, I'm just going to continue with the indoctrination. They don't use those words, but that's basically what it is.
Same thing. I would love to send my kids to a school, but right? I just have all these concerns about what's happening there. And I can see what's happening there in the society around me.
It's like, and again, I love using myself as a kind of lab rat test case for all of these topics, because it goes to like how I have become kind of an anarchist. But I went through the whole school system. My parents, I was raised, with privilege. My parents sent me to an Ivy League school, to law school, like they paid for everything. I just happened to have made the mistake of believing my father that I could be anything I want and I should just go for what makes me happy. So those things never added up. Like, I was always good at school and I made good grades, but then I went and did the jobs and I was completely not happy. And we went into that last week. I was on all these pills after a while because of all that, it just wasn't right for me and my constitution. I know other people who had the same jobs I had and they're thriving. It just worked for their constitution. It didn't work for mine. So I look back at all my school and all the thing and like, thank God I didn't have to pay for it and go deep into debt like so many people do, because at the end of the day, it didn't really do me a lot of good. It opened some doors for me, but those weren't the doors I really wanted. And I had to find my own way anyway. At the end of the day, I lost so many good years being indoctrinated and now having to unlearn all this stuff and get my self-confidence and my mojo back. It's like, that's what we're doing. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like in my midlife and I'm like, fuck, I got to start over and do it right this time, but do it fast, So like, I really want to hear from, more in the audience. Does anyone, we've covered so much stuff today, and I feel like now is a great time to open up the conversation. So there's a lot of great chats coming in. Danny's raising his hand. What's up, Danny from the Netherlands? Welcome back, brother. How are you?
I'm doing good. I was wondering, when educating a child, when she or he wants to do something you consider dangerous or not good, how do you go about it? Do you talk about it? I think that's logic, but like if you think about wanting to eat candy or something like that, or maybe a swimming pool, you would say, then go learn the child how to swim because they want to swim. But that's my question about it.
Yeah.
Who's your question for? Who wants to take that on? Angel?
I'll take it on. So we unschool and we have all of our baggage and everything. I think what makes really successful parents, successful people, and homeschoolers and unschoolers is when you learn to communicate with people in general and also with your children. And so that takes that takes a lot of empathizing with yourself, empathizing with your children, keeping the lines of communication open with your children. One thing I do note about my own kids is because we have a really free, like there are almost no rules in our house. And even when things go wrong, if they do something not supposed to do, if they break something, if they do something, like I want them always to feel like they can communicate with me, and there's not going to be this just authoritarian who's like, pressing down on them because something happened that shouldn't have happened. And so I'm really, really cognizant of that when I'm communicating with them. And I've gotten better at this over time. It's not like I was always like this. I grew up in a family, where like hitting your kids is okay. So I had to go from, not that that's how I treated my own kids, but I had to go from not really understanding myself and my own emotions to understanding my emotions, understanding that there's this other person on this other side of me who has their own desires, respecting that they have their own desires, right? You have to show your kids respect. And then you have to communicate with them in a way that shows that you respect them. You're going to let them make their decisions, but you want to give them information that might be helpful to them. And that I have found is the best way to get them to hear what you're saying and to take your advice. And sometimes they don't. And then you just have to be willing to step back and let them live and learn the lessons that we all had to learn anyway, right?
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, it's good.
For sure. Do you have any follow on that, Danny?
No, not sure. No, I don't think so. This is a very new concept for me, and I do when I've watched some older Anarchapulco videos, and now I do a lot of reflecting back for myself on my schooling. Like, oh yeah, that's really bad, and that other were good teachers. They were learning you to think for yourself, and yeah, it's
there you go. Like that's the process right there, right? It's like that's
kind of something for that right there. And real fast, I was talking with Catherine the other day about like foods, right? So let's say you have a 5-year-old and they want to eat shit food, and you're like, I don't really want to do that. Well, hey, they're exploring, they're trying to figure out what's going on. So if they were 20 years old, or if they're 50 years old and they're eating shit food, you'd say, hey, that's not good for you, So with kids, you're being sensitive and being, compassionate with them, because that's like a mirror of yourself. And then swimming, you mentioned, Danny, that's a great question, because I almost drowned at age 6. I was in a little jacuzzi and I went to it and I was waving my hands and my uncle pulled me out. And then like 20 years later, my niece almost drowned and I pulled her out. So I'm like super sensitive about kids in water, because that's like instant death, or like kids running around streets. So if like, my niece is running, like if there's a car coming, I'll tackle them, right? That violates the non-aggression principle. But they're naive, they're ignorant. Is this, maybe you don't like those words, but they don't have knowledge, they don't have experience. So with that context, they're learning. So with someone who is genuinely ignorant and they want to learn and they're sensitive and like they look to you for leadership and support, then you can guide them and help them. Hey, this is food. I don't recommend this, or, different things. But it's like you love this person, you want the best for them. So regardless of age, you help them. If they're still defecating in their shorts, then they're still trying to figure out life, so you can kind of guide them, but treating them as the sacred, maybe divine you believe in their being, I think is a good foundation to start. And then the principles, right? The self-ownership principle, the non-aggression, and you can kind of build around that, because it's like a philosophy. It's life learning. It's holistic.
Awesome. Thanks, David. So like we want to, let's turn it over to a couple more audience. So I've got Ken here and I've got Michelle. Let's do Michelle first and then Ken. So Ken, we're going to come to you after. If we'll talk to Michelle for a minute and then we'll come to Ken. Anyone else who wants to come on, just chat with us and we will get to you. We promise. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, everybody. I'm from Ottawa, Ontario.
Awesome. Welcome from Ottawa.
Thank you. And I've never been to Anarchapulco, but I'm a big Jeff Berwick fan. My husband is really into the Dollar Vigilante, and so we've kind of like been on the train, I guess, for maybe a few years.
Oh, awesome. We hope to see you there this time.
Yeah. Well, I have a newborn, so maybe next year. But I have quite a background, I guess, in education. I moved to Ottawa 12 years ago, And I was actually hired to teach at a private school that was set up by people who wanted to homeschool their kids, but knew they couldn't do it themselves, so they hired teachers to do it. So essentially, we were following homeschool curriculums, and it was like, I think there were 22 kids when I started working there, and I taught kindergarten, and then I taught kindergarten grade 1, then I taught kindergarten grade 1, grade 2. You guys say first grade, second grade. I loved it because I got to learn right along with the kids. And the reason why I was hired was because I actually have a dance background and I have a fine arts degree. So dance was what I studied in university. And they felt that because I didn't have an education degree that I would be really open to this kind of curriculum, which of course I was. But it's interesting because after that, I went on to purchase my own dance studio, and I own a children's dance theater now. So I essentially pick kids up from a public school and walk them over to the studio, and I teach them dance. And I've done that, I guess, for the last 9 years. And so I had the sort of experience of picking up kids from the public school system every day and then bringing them into an environment where I'm teaching, an art form. And it's really interesting because it's sort of like they're shell shocked when they come out. And I'm in one of the best areas of Ottawa. I think it's the top public school, top rated. We have these rating systems here. But I think it's traumatic for the kids. And now I have 3 kids of my own who are 3.5, 19 months, and 6 weeks old. And I'm like, what am I going to do? Because I know what the public system is like. I do like the private school that I worked at. And I have friends kind of on all spectrums who unschooled and homeschooled and public schooled and private schooled. I think I wrote on the chat, my aunt was a teacher and she homeschooled her 3 kids and they all went on and did amazing things. But I remember as the cousins, we were always like, oh, you're so our cousins who are homeschooled are so weird because they weren't like all the kids in public school. Right. So, it's a hard, on one hand, you want your kids to be able to be free thinkers and, just like the way my aunt did it, they would just do projects. And so whatever they were interested in, they'd go to the library, they'd pick out books on a subject that they wanted to study, and they'd stay with that topic until they produced some sort of a report or a project or however they wanted to express, I guess, or what they had learned. And it worked really, really well for them. And then I've had other friends that have homeschooled, they have these big families, 6, 7 kids. They homeschool for a period of time and then they put their kids in school because they're tired, and they need a break. And they do sort of a combo of they'll go to school for 4 days and they'll be home for 1 day. And I'm sorry, I'm a little bit late to the conversation. So maybe you guys have talked about all of this stuff already. So, but I'd just be interested in, I know there's not one particular way, but
yeah, when you, I don't know when you hopped on, Michelle, but if you can catch the replay of the early part of the call, and definitely Kat was talking about how her kids are split between they do homeschooling a few days a week and they go to a private school a few days a week. Okay. And so that I think you'll be really interested in that part of the conversation. We definitely touched on some of that. And it's definitely okay to bring about whatever you want here, because that's why we're here. So happy that you came on and you're talking to us and sharing your experience. Anything do you have any questions for Catherine or Angel?
Yeah, I would love to know, when you guys are particularly homeschooling, do you follow curriculums? Do you buy curriculums and follow them for certain subjects, or do you just completely create your own? In the school that I had worked at, the one that people, there was this one woman, Susan Wise Bauer, and there were sort of 2 schools of thought in her. Some people were don't even ask me if I follow that because she was such an extreme homeschool, and other people loved her resources. So I just wondered if you guys have resources that you go to, or do you kind of create as you go?
I make it things we use a lot of online resources, but it's not the resource. Sometimes it'll be Khan Academy or it'll be K-12 Reader or something. if the kids are into it. I quickly learned that if the kids are not into it, then it's not good for anyone. Nobody's happy and nobody's learning anything. But sometimes the kids will come to me and say, I think I need to know more about this. And I'm like, okay, yes. I'm like, yes, let's sit down. Let's go to this resource. And sometimes they're like, oh, I don't like the way this site works. And so we'll choose another one. But it's really just being, just having a dynamic view of things and being ready to move into different areas. And I do think it's valuable to have different curriculums in your house because you don't know what your kids are going to take to. And as you know, the more resources you have, the better. So yes, when there's something specific that the kids are into, I will look toward one of these curriculums if it makes sense. And if it's not something that I can talk about organically or teach them about organically. But we have books and, you know, all kinds of things just to be just there so when they're ready, it's there for them.
And how old are your kids?
I have a 19-year-old who's already gone and out of the house. She moved out when she was 17, and it was like such a win.
For sure.
Yeah, she moved out when she was 17. I have two 15-year-olds, and I have a 6-year-old, and they're all very different. The twins, boy-girl twins. My daughter is like an unschooler's dream. It's like if you say you're unschooling and you want to show a kid, you want to show them this kid because she paints and she makes music and she writes and she draws and she's just cultivating all of these skills, right? She hates math and we don't stress that, but sometimes she goes, I need to learn something, and she'll get into it for a little bit and then maybe put it away. And then my son is very much into video games and basketball. My older daughter, she only homeschooled in her final years of high school, and she had already been very much on a track. She, studied for her SATs and took her SATs. But one thing I really do love about having maybe peacefully parented her is that she moved out when she was 17, and people said to me, oh my God, are you so scared? And I said, no, because she's never had any rules. I've seen everything she's going to do. I've seen who she is. She's been free to do it. And she's been able to do it in a place where I could see it and observe her and give her guidance, without, making rules and forcing her into any situation. So I felt really confident about her moving out because I know who she is. And that's one of the things parents should think about when you're trying to force your kids into anything, is that you won't really know who they are if you're not being more receptive. And so, but anyway, but your question was really specifically about the curriculums, and I know Catherine uses the Waldorf, and I've looked into that. There are so many resources out there. Kat, what do you think?
For me, I was gifted a bunch of curriculums when my children were like 18 months old from several of my homeschool friends that are in the liberty, anarchist, voluntarist movement. And the one I really gravitated toward was the Christophorus at Home Waldorf curriculum. And this is all about lifestyles and rhythms, and it just gives you ideas. And they're very clear. If your child is resistant, don't force them, because anytime you're forcing something, you are creating resistance, and they're not actually going to be learning. They're not actually going to be engaged. And so with your age group specifically, you've got 3 and under, I would consider getting the Christophorus at Home Waldorf curriculum for age 3 through 6. And this is all about creating rhythms and, singing songs to help kids transition, and they'll give you ideas of songs. I make up my own. Having a nature table in the house, taking the kids out and going on a walk every day and collecting little items and bringing them into the home. I mean, I don't know if you can see, we've got a turtle shell and a sheep skull and peacock feathers and duck feathers and this crystal we have found just in our life journeys, traveling, and my son saying he found the sheep skull, and it's true. So going out into nature, collecting objects, bringing them into the house. He's really chiming in. He found the turtle shell too, he says. So but anyway, this has been really, really good for them because it gets them engaged with nature and being outside. And I collected, little seashells and things anyway. But when the kids are participating, like that's an idea that this curriculum gives you. So anyway, it just gives you some. Bill, can you stop stomping? He's real excited now because we're talking about our lives. So anyway, this curriculum gives you ideas for just kind of how to get through the day with kids that are this age, including them in washing the dishes, including them in making the food, including them in setting the table, lighting a candle, at meals. I've got this, burnt candle right here. It's already burnt down. But, creating sacred spaces around meals together and communion. And, Waldorf is very low tech. Our family does use tech. So I'm not dogmatic about anything that I utilize. I do appreciate how Waldorf incorporates, wooden toys and natural toys and things like that. But my kids love magnetic blocks and they love Legos. So we have those. But we are very simple with the toys. I live in a converted school bus, so we can't really have a lot of things in here. So just finding what works for you, I think, is really important. I really like this Christopher's just kind of routine lifestyle of the Waldorf mentality, working with wax, wet on wet painting. It just gives you a lot of ideas. And if they don't work for you, don't do them. And if there's other things that do work, do those instead. That's my take on it.
That's an awesome share right there. David, before we jump back to you, I want to open it up. We've got Moose has had his hand up for almost an hour. So I want to get Moose on right now and get some feedback. We also have Ken and we also have Bobby. But this is obviously one of these conversations that's getting lively. So, we're not rushing anybody off here. We're going to keep talking. So let's get Moose on here real quick and get some feedback here from Moose. Thanks for being so patient, Moose. What's up?
Are they unmuted?
Mute. Okay, mute. Moose, you are unmuted.
Here we go. Let's see.
Wait,
Does it work now?
Yeah, you're on, Moose.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I don't mind being patient. I understand lots of conversations, very interesting. My first time joining this session. So yeah, very interesting. I don't have any kids of my own, but I'm one of 9 siblings. I'm the big brother, so I can relate kind of from a different perspective. So, one thing I want to relate to a lot of the conversation here is my youngest sibling, my sister, Sarah. I left home at 16, so a lot of my siblings didn't grow up with me directly, but I've taken care of my family, sending money, whatever I needed to take care of things. So I've always been involved in their lives, keep everyone together, been around the country kind of thing. So recently, in the last 6 months, I finally got her to visit where I currently live. And she just turned 17. She can't really go to school, medical reasons. So she has that mixture of having to stay at home and things, and life is a struggle. Our mother isn't the best life situation, you understand. But I've always been about asking questions. I got her involved here, and I was and she loved having debates with me. She brought me this whole well, what about this? What about those? There's this paper, straw, the climate, the environment. And so I'd be all right, let's have this conversation. Well, how are you going to force that? Okay, you have this opinion. That's a good idea. How are you going to make that? Should you force someone? And being able to interact with her. And because she hasn't been able to be at school, she has a different perspective. So she's asking more questions. So in 3 months, I saw her change and then come back at me again with more questions. But the story I found really most phenomenal, because a lot of people have a lot of conflicts with the homeless and, it's terrible and human suffering and blah, blah, blah. That's what this government structure does. That's what we do right now. Why are you going to tell me that my philosophy is wrong? So people have that conflict. So she came to me. She's not going to school. She has to do some weird program. She has 2 part-time jobs making more than minimum wage. And she looked at me. She's like, Joel, I don't know why there's homeless people outside of Walmart. Walmart has internet and you can apply online right there and you can make more money and they don't require qualifications. It's a 17-year-old girl who has 2 jobs, supports her, our mother and the bills. And it's actually absolutely phenomenal. And people think that you need school to people to teach someone, but it was like a perfect example of someone completely outside of the school structure was able to look at a situation and ask like a fundamental economic question that they would never teach you in school. I just thought it was like interesting.
Yeah, that is super. That's a really good share. And it sounds like your sister is an awesome human being and has the constitution to be able to stand up and choose her own path, which is, that's the anarchist way. It's beautiful. I'm so glad you're here with us, Moose. Thank you so much for coming on. Who else we have? We have Ken has been waiting to get on. Let's get Ken on and get some input there. And then I think Bobby after that, and then we'll open it up and bat some stuff around. We'll go back to David because we haven't heard from David for a while. He's a co-host, so we got to hear from David. So let's get Ken. Is Ken still here?
Can I introduce Ken? I would like to introduce Ken.
Absolutely.
Our kids got together at least once a week the entire time that we lived in Acapulco. His children are brilliant. They are beautiful. They are so smart. They are trilingual. And they are the sweetest, most kind little creatures I've ever met in my life. And I miss them dearly. And I really appreciate, Ken, what you and Diane are doing and how you are raising your kids. And I just wanted to say that because it takes a tribe, it takes a village. And my kids, having your kids in Acapulco, made our experience there absolutely phenomenal. So thank you for that.
Jeez, thank you, Catherine. I really appreciate that. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Catherine, I honestly, I don't know what to say to all that. Jeez, thank you. Other than that, I mean, geez. Yeah, I mean, where do I start really? Just because our journey here has just been incredibly diverse and long and just, I mean, you know what, we were just talking the other day about becoming parents. How could we have possibly become parents in our teens and 20s? I just don't see it because, I'm pushing 50 now and the stuff, I mean, I'm still learning stuff every single day. And like you guys were just saying about being a teacher or whatever, you don't need a piece of paper to tell you that you are a teacher of something, like you're a specialty in something or whatever, because really what it comes down to, in my opinion, is life experience. So you can go get a piece of paper from a college or whatever that says you're an expert in this or that. But fact is, like, unless you get out there and travel around and open your mind to many different things and opinions and ideas. I mean, really, that's the best way to make a parent is just to do it. Just get out there and do it. So, I mean, from our travels through Europe, and we lived in Greece for a year. So what was pretty cool is, Catherine, I don't know if you knew that, but our girls learned Greek in about 9 months. And I don't know if you've ever seen the Greek language, but it's insane, man. Like just the different letters and Russian. I kind of looked at Russian a little bit too, just because we got a lot of crypto people in Russia, but it's incredibly difficult. And the fact that they're 6 and 7 years old at that time, a year and a half ago or so, was able to pick up Greek that fast just by more or less just putting herself into the culture. Just get out of the house and go on. I mean, my favorite thing to do is going hiking. So we always just pick a direction, and then we would drive to where we couldn't drive anymore, and then just go hiking in different places and stuff like that. And you meet people from all over, just speaking Polish and Turk and all kinds of just different languages and stuff in the different places that we went. And just the fact that if you can pick up another language or a couple of languages, that opens every door for you. That was like the biggest thing for us, was just jumping into different lifestyles and peoples. And you know what I mean? Like that's been the number one thing, I think, is just knowing multiple languages. I mean, I'm not fluent in Spanish yet. I'm trying, obviously, but at my age, it doesn't seem to quite stick as good as it does into their heads. But I'm trying. But anyhow, I think, Angel, you were saying something about Khan Academy. The girls went through Khan Academy pretty quick. That was a very good and free thing to do. So if you can get onto the Khan Academy website, that's a great start. My specialties also are not just software and stuff, but also in science and finance. So I don't exactly have a lab here in Acapulco, so doing the science stuff and playing with chemistry has been kind of tough. But finance, one thing that I would really recommend is Robert Kiyosaki's Cash Flow 101 board game. If you guys haven't seen that, but I really, really, really love that game. And we have meetups and stuff where we have people come over for the Cash Flow 101 game. And then also there's a kids version of it, which if your kids are under 8 or 9, I guess, would probably be the limit for the Cash Flow for Kids game. But that is a very good starter to introduce your kids into, what is passive income versus earned income, income versus expenses, your assets and liabilities, how to properly read a balance sheet, this kind of stuff. So they've touched on our Cash Flow 101 game too. So teaching them finance, especially in this world that we're in right now, especially entering the crypto thing now, is extremely important in my opinion. So multiple languages, teach them the stuff that really matters in this monetary system that we're still living in right now. And just, I don't know what else to say really. It's just so many things, man. Just get out of the house and go play some volleyball and disc golf,
Did you do that from their birth, or were they in any public schooling from the beginning, or from the get-go were you like, this is what we're going to do? And you and your wife were on the same page from day one with that?
Well, my wife woke up actually about a year into our relationship. She's from East Germany. So she's already awake to what can happen to a society in a way. So she's already open-minded to all these kind of ideas. So we're on the same page at every single level now, like every rabbit hole you can imagine too. So that's been
beautiful, and that's rare to find that.
Crazy. Public school, of course. When we were in Germany, we got them into the public school, and they were, they really try to make you feel guilty if you don't do the vaccine thing. But we were just like, no. And so we did manage to get in. I don't remember if it was like a religious waiver or whatever, but we got them into public school for a while, and it's just militant. Just, I don't know what else to call it. It's just, I couldn't take it. I was like, no, man, I don't care what it takes. We can't do this. And then this thing in Greece took off, and so we're like, okay, let's go give that a shot. And the Greek schools was actually quite good. We put them into a private school though in Greece. So really, really enjoyed it there. It just wasn't really where I wanted to live though. So we were looking around. We went back to our apartment in Germany, and I was like, no way, man, I'm not putting my kids back into this public school and going through all this vaccine thing again. And just no way, man. What do we do? And the private schools in Munich are just extreme high price. Like there's no way I could afford that. So like, okay, what do we do? Well, now that we're both awake and our kids are awake, where's the highest congregation of people that I know of with open minds? And I don't want to go back to America just because of the danger that's coming there, and there's way too many asleep people. And nothing against Americans, but man, I just had it with the mentalities and stuff. So so we looked at, thanks to Jeff, I was like, you know what, Acapulco seems pretty awesome, man. And I'd already been communicating with a few people that lived in Acapulco, and everybody seemed like really open-minded, and the cost of living is way cheaper, and we got them into a private school here real easy. It's very, the thing is, which was really cool too, is to get your kid into a school at all, whether it be public or private, you got to jump through all these stupid hoops and qualify for this and take these tests for this and that and whatever. And the Mexican people, when we went to the school, they're like, oh, no problem. Yeah, come on in. I'm like, seriously? Like, that's it? Like, cool, man. Dude, I've never even experienced something so easy in my friggin' life. So that was just a total blessing, man. So we put him into a private school here, and I love absolutely everything about Acapulco. Everything, literally everything, man. I have zero complaints. It's nice every day. The people here, it's very family friendly here. That's the other cool thing. They're not like anti-family, which is kind of what America seems like. They're trying to divide everybody and break up families and all this stuff. And I'm like, here, it's all about the family. Like everybody, I'm not really into the kissy thing. You know how they like people like, oh, hi, my God. I'm kind of weirded out by that part still, but everybody's like that here, though. It's just, you know what I mean? It's just, man, I don't know what else to say. I'm so glad I'm here. I'm never leaving. I swear.
That's so awesome. How long have you lived there, real quick? How long have you lived down in Acapulco full time?
About a year and a half now.
Wow, that's amazing. So like when I was a kid, my family used to vacation down in Acapulco. So that's why I resonated so much with this event, and can't wait. Actually, this year will be my first time down there. I haven't been to Acapulco in years, but spent a lot of time down there as a kid and just have the best memories of it. I mean, behind me, the picture of the Princess Mundo where Anarchapulco happens is, I remember when it was a kind of new hotel when it went up. It's so beautiful there. The beach is so beautiful. Yeah, definitely. It's just incredible. So like what I'm really learning and kind of a surprise for me personally is learning from all of you guys who actually are living and have spent extended time down in Acapulco, because I always had a dream as a kid. Like I had one family, we used to go down for a couple of weeks, but I had another friend whose dad used to stay for he went in November and wouldn't come back till March. And like, I remember thinking like, man, I want to be that guy one day. You know what I mean? I'll go spend months down there in Acapulco. And now I'm meeting you guys who have actually lived there or are living there full time. And wow, I can't wait to get down there and just start to like invite myself over and see how you're living and all of that stuff. This is so cool that you're on here, Ken. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah.
Evan, I want to mention one thing about Acapulco. And it's that the Montessori school there, they are very open to people coming for one semester. So they were absolutely willing to let my kids come for the spring semester if they wanted to go to school or be homeschooled somewhere else in the fall semester. I was unable to negotiate that with their father, but the school itself is very open to this. So if you want to create an alternative lifestyle where you can spend extended time in Acapulco as a family and you want them to have this experience, and the Montessori school is $250 a month per kid, and it's half in Spanish and half in English. So, I mean, to me, I was like, this is an amazing opportunity. I don't want to let this slip through my fingers. And there's still time, of course, because they go all the way through high school. So I just want to mention that there are really creative ways that you can travel and educate your children. You can do a hybrid. You can do a hybrid between, homeschool, private school. You just really decentralize your education through travel.
Yeah.
Hi!
Remember Jade?
That is awesome. Awesome. I love this. Let's get Bobby. And is there anyone else waiting? Put a note in the chat and we'll know to call you. But I want to get Bobby on here and then open it back up to David. And it's 5:40, so we're in our final 20 minutes here. So let's get Bobby on, and then David's been waiting to come in, and then we'll probably have to wrap it up after that. But this is an amazing discussion. This is my favorite one so far. Let's keep going. What has Bobby got? Bobby, you still here? Thank you for your patience. You are unmuted. Yeah, come on.
Nice to be here with everybody.
Nice to have you.
Yeah, so I already have met David on another online event over at Richard Grove's spot. He's got an online community that I'm a part of, and we had a little dialogue about homeschooling and unschooling. And I just wanted to hit you up, David, about what you were saying in the chat about intergenerational indoctrination. And so it's like with this, we can talk about our personal families and what we're doing with our own families, but this is, I have a lot of kids, and they all put themselves back in public school at 15, 13, 10 and 8-year-old. One of them's in private school, the 10-year-old, and the other I was just at the Anarchapulco in February, the first one. So it's like the hotel back there. It's like, it's a cool spot, but you look out from the hotel and you see a Walmart and a Home Depot, and you see society out there, and the state is everywhere. And so we're talking about an intergenerational thing of like, what you said on that conversation was the Buckminster Fuller quote about you changing the paradigm yourself. It's like you're not going to change the system. So the intergenerational part of it is really like my kids' kids kind of thing. And what we can do I was down there with the Free Your Family camp. I popped in there a couple of times. I was seeing, there was a lot of different venues going on. And Richard Grove said, "Hey, did you see Dave Rodriguez down there?" And I was like, no, I didn't even remember seeing him on the roster because you were up against Passio. So, I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that, David.
So intergenerational is really key. And I got the term of that because using accurate language is so important. It's not public school. It's forced school or coercive school. Public is when it's voluntary, in my opinion, or state is, I think, maybe more accurate. So intergenerational has to do with what the cabal has, the people who own the Federal Reserve, the people behind the military-industrial complex, whoever you want to call, people with skull and bones, Bilderberg, Trilateral Commission, Council on Foreign Relations, whoever they are that you want to say, they have a plan to globalize the state. That's what the United Nations is about. Because before that, there was the League of Nations, which failed. So these guys, they can print hundreds of millions and billions of dollars. They have made it for intergenerational tyranny. And that's what the scary thing is, as you know, Tragedy and Hope, the book, Carol Quigley, he goes into the foundations and the paperwork, the minutes of these meetings of the Rockefeller Foundations and these various, mega corporations. So the reason I use that term because it helps me be present to what's happening to our children. It wasn't just me who got dumbed down through the school system. It wasn't just my parents, but it's us, and then going forward. And so what Gatto taught me, and a lot of my passion and inspiration comes from him. He was the school teacher of the year in New York for 30 years. And he says, all the time you spend trying to reform the system is a waste of time because there's too many financial incentives. Right now, Chicago, this is October 29, 2019, the Chicago city school system is on strike for 12 days. They want more money. So you have the mayor and you have the union, and they're fighting against each other. Two statist organizations who don't generate actual value in the marketplace. They use coercion. So just keeping the big picture open is like the state is like a Titanic. And when you turn the wheel on the Titanic, it doesn't immediately shift. It takes time to shift this thing. So this is why I'm hopeful, because we're having these conversations. There's more people like you who have kids and are like trying to, understand and get a handle on it. But I would ask you, I think you said between age 8 and 13, do you talk to your kids about voluntarism or anarchy and statism? Is it a topic that you put in there, or are you looking for approaches to talk about it? Because Ken brought up the great game, Cash Flow Quadrant or Cash Flow 101. That game alone is probably more valuable than my business degree. You're talking about real assets, real liabilities, balance sheet, and it's amazing, that game. So go take a look at that, and there's all these different ways to go about that. But in terms of freedom, I was playing around with the idea of having a game called Statists versus Voluntarists or something, because this is the conversation. We can't be stuck in the left-right paradigm of Trump or Hillary or Bernie or Warren. We have to help people. And you mentioned the quote, we don't change reality by fighting against it. We have to make a new model that makes the old model obsolete. The reason Blockbuster is out of business is because Netflix is better. Amazon Video is better. So these models that we're talking about now, Sudbury, Summerhill, Agile Learning, some of the things that Kat mentioned, they're better. So we just got to help mom and dad break through and understand it is kind of scary, but they can pull them out. This is a proven model. It helps if you have a little bit of support network. But then I think you're kind of in a tough spot, Bobby, where your kids want to be in the school system. So as I mentioned before, as long as they know, you don't have to be there, and I don't care if you get good grades or not. So this is where, maybe some of the other people I have some issues with, like the grades, they don't matter at all, in my opinion, because I got good grades too and no one gave a shit. What they want to know is, are you a nice guy? Are you a team player? What kind of skills or knowledge do you have? Are you coachable? Are you super arrogant? Right? These are the things. And then the biggest thing, which I didn't talk about, the other quote about Johann Fichte, he said we want to destroy imagination. So that's a huge one, because imagination is what makes us different from the dogs and the monkeys and, these other beautiful, animals too. But we can create art. We can communicate through language where we're just communicating meanings. So as long as your kids know that they can easily opt out of that system, I think they're fine. And my conclusion, and kind of in this freedom stuff, is I can't change people. What I can do is give them information with love and hope and sincerity. And if they want to grab hold of it, cool. But I'm on a direction and I got to do what's right for me, because ultimately we're all self-educated. And once they can learn that self-knowledge, and there's other aspects too, but just being a human being, understanding this body is our gift, our minds are the real gift. And then later on, if they become interested in freedom, cool. If not, then it's up to you for your grandkids if they're interested in freedom. Because I just saw an article today about the microchip called ID 2020. Bill Gates is going to do some ID for vaccines. It's global. It's going to be easy. It's going to be convenient. You put it in your hand. So we see a global enslavement coming. And I'm so glad Ken mentioned that, because I'm in California. I'm like, dude, I got to get out of here, man. So I might join you in Acapulco sooner rather than later. But those are some of my thoughts. And we hand over to Angel for a couple comments too.
Wait, actually, real quick, before we go back to Angel, because it was Bobby's question, I want to throw it back to Bobby to see if you have any follow-up for David on that. Yeah, and it's okay if you don't, because we're in our last 10 minutes, so we want to keep it brief, but definitely want to give you a chance to follow if you had anything to follow with, because you just turned your camera on, and it's really good to see you, Bobby.
Yeah, it's nice to be here. It's like it's a really heartfelt group of people that gathered down there in Acapulco, and I was quite impressed by the whole thing. It's like my kids. After going down there, I'm just like, forget it. Get out of the school. It's like, I call it slave-amentary. And they put themselves there, and I'm just like, you're being brainwashed. Do you notice that about your mind? What's going on? Every day they come back. I'm just trying to figure out a livelihood. It's like crypto's, what's going on with crypto, and that's about to change the whole paradigm of the universe.
For sure. And we've got Cryptopulco down there. So there's going to be so much great crypto stuff going on at Anarchapulco 2020 and Cryptopulco of the whole stage going on. This is just an amazing conversation. Really, really excited by this. We have to move it forward, so I'm going to throw it back to Angel, and then we're going to do our we'll do our wrap up. So go from Angel, David, Catherine, and then back to me, and I'll do the final announcements, and then we'll sign off. I'll tell you what's coming on next week. Last week I forgot to tease for this week. I will remember this week to show you guys what's coming on for next week. So I want to thank everyone for coming on and asking your questions, and please keep the conversations going in the chat and the Facebook and the YouTube channels. If you have questions for any of us, tag us, reach out to us. We will get back to you. We'll take it up either in the next conversation, or if you send us DMs, we'll get back to you as fast as we can. So let me throw that to Angel right now, and we'll start our goodbye sequence.
Yeah, Bobby, I wanted to really address what you said about your kids, and something that Michelle said in the chat as well, because your kids want to go back into school, and we talk to our kids about liberty, and it's really hard to impart our values, because everything, we seem kind of crazy sometimes. Everything that they're consuming outside of our homes is really in one direction, right? And so I've been thinking a lot about this, because I was talking to my daughter the other day, and she said to my oldest daughter, she's 19, in my kitchen, she said, Mom, the planet's dying. And I said, no, the planet's not dying. But I said, whatever, but it's good that you have a concern about the planet, as long as you understand that it's not okay to advocate using violence against anyone in order to resolve those problems. We can come up with solutions. And she said to me, I'm not advocating anything like that. I just think we need regulation. And I said, wait, you've grown up in this house. I've been an anarchist for the past 10, 12 years. How is it that you don't understand that is exactly what regulation is? I don't like to be a proselytizer to my kids, but I do like to talk to them about things. But it dawned on me that they are consuming so much outside of my home, is that there is a tide that, I can't fight against alone. And it became very clear to me that one of the most important things for us to do as parents is to immerse our kids in communities where other people believe the same things as us, because they need that kind of validation. They need to hear people talking about freedom. They need to see the families living it, so that they become, it's like Ken was saying, I think it's like any language. You need your kids to learn the language of liberty, and they have to be immersed in it. And that's why I'm bringing my 19-year-old even with me to Anarchapulco, because I want her to be at the conference and be around everyone and listen to them and just have other feedback. And her boyfriend's coming too, and I want him to be there because I want her to have another support person who believes
wrap it up.
in it. But to me, that's one of the most important things. That's what we're trying to do here with Anarchapulco, is to build community. And with that, I will say I'm so excited to be a part of this community and to meet you all and see you all. And I will sign off with that.
Okay, we've got 6 minutes until the 2-hour mark. I need 2 minutes at the end. Dave, you got 2. Catherine, you got 2. Let's do it.
Getting an education is like getting a healthy body. You can set up the conditions for your child, but they have to do the hard work. You can get them a gym membership, but they're not getting a 6-pack unless they go do the abs. You can give them weights, but they got to do the heavy lifting. This is the challenge of life. And we all are mad in our own ways, like Mark Twain said, and the mysteries of life will appear. And life is a madness, a crazy situation. And I think the issue of our lifetime is freedom versus slavery. And so here we are. We have the solution. We're not stuck in the paradigm. It's self-ownership, the non-aggression principle, self-defense. And just so you parents know out there, curriculum, you create your own curriculum. And I have a group where there's 20 types of curriculums I created. I help parents design their own curriculums, because life is make it up as you go. And then the part about the community is so important, because it's going down. Like Ken mentioned, we all feel something fishy. So whether we're in the U.S. or somewhere else, you want to have a community. So there's also a group called Voluntary Village Creators, where we can kind of mastermind and help create the new world, build a voluntary world, one village at a time, one city at a time, and be the example, be the light on the hill where people say, I want to be like Sharon, Mexico, or I want to be like these other eco villages. I want to do that. So we can show them the pattern or show them the model like a franchise, and then we can go do it and lead and just leave these politicians in the dust. I love this community. I love freedom. You guys are awesome rock star champions. And I hope to see you all in Acapulco.
Okay, thank you, David. I just want to really quickly mention a couple things that were mentioned on Facebook by some of the people watching. Naja, my friend, we met at Rethinking Everything. She mentioned the movie called Class Dismissed. She's recommending everyone to watch that. I have not watched it, but I wanted to pass it along. Jennifer asked if there's a specific state in Mexico that is best for homeschooling. And I don't know, but I know of 3 areas where there are little hotbeds of unschoolers and expats. And those are Oaxaca, if I'm saying that correctly, Acapulco, and San Miguel. And I know people in all of these areas, and they're really happy and thriving. And then I also want to mention that on the Anarchapulco blog, we have a lot of articles about unschooling and homeschooling coming out. So I encourage you to go to anarchapulco.com, click on the blog, scroll down, you can find a lot of unschooling content. Also on my blog, thehomestead.guru, I have multiple homeschooling and unschooling mothers who have written content for 5 years on this blog. So lots of really rich and dynamic content about unschooling. I've got an email list where I talk about my journeys and my adventures. It's stuff that I don't necessarily post on Facebook or anywhere else. And for my unschooling, wild schooling, travel schooling, world schooling adventure, find me on Instagram, rewild.child. I love to share about my parenting journey there, my self-improvement journey there. You can message me and we can have a dialogue. That's all.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So just some closing announcements. We're going to wrap up again. This has been an incredible week. Just an incredible conversation that we're going to keep this going. I want to remind you guys again, there's so much great information and resources on our website at Anarchapulco.com. If you've never been there, check out our FAQ page. You learn all about what to expect down there. We got tons of videos on our testimonials page, also on our sponsors page, where people are talking about the experience of being involved with us and being down there either as attendees or as participants. And it really gives you a good flavor to watch those videos. So if you haven't seen those, spend some time on our website, check that stuff out. Affiliate training is coming. We are going to be creating a series of amazing affiliate training videos that I'm going to personally be doing for you guys. And we're going to have that ready. Hopefully next week, we will have that ready. So whenever it's ready in our next conversation, we'll roll that out. We'll put a blog post up about it and we'll do the announcements. But this is going to be a click-by-click, step-by-step video walkthrough where I hold your hand and show you how to take advantage of our affiliate program and make some money with us while you're helping grow our community and helping us sell more tickets for 2020. So let's see. You can reach me on Instagram at Evan Talks. I haven't been posting a lot, but I answer my DMs. Give me a few days. I get back to everybody there. David, Angel, Catherine, and I, and the whole Anarchapulco team are so honored and thrilled to be part of these conversations and to have you guys here. I really love the fact that you guys are coming on and you're staying on for the call. It's like you guys are engaged, and we love the fact that you're coming on to talk to us. We see more of you putting your cameras on every week. This is going actually exactly the way we were hoping. So I'm getting kind of the warm and fuzzies as I'm talking about this. My heart is swelling. It's 6 o'clock. We're going to close it out. We love you guys. We'll see you next week on Conversations in Anarchy. Thank you.
Anarchapulco, it's so hype, I'm trying to tell ya. This the event of the year and best vacation ever. Ron Potter, Jeffrey Tucker, just to name a few. Get your tickets, you don't want to miss it. You should roll through, talking politics to health and self-improvement to invest in. So many things, not one thing. Learn how to live life unchained, yeah. 4 days vibing on the beach, time to connect. All about growth, way more than a conference. This is Anarchapulco, yeah. Let's go.
You ain't seen nothing yet.